time and for what you will say to us as we go along tonight. And thank you for those who are here, those who are tuned in, and those who probably will be, in Jesus' name. Amen. So let me turn it down a little bit. Turn it down just a little bit. So let me listen to you all who were here to hear on Sunday to give me some feedback from what you heard on Sunday. That's where we want to start because that ties in to where we'll be going today. Now we're talking about listening to God. This is the second part to it. We'll be in Mark chapter 4. But just want to hear just where you are. What do you take in? What's the value of it? Because if you eat and eat and eat, you just get indigestion, and that's just what will happen. But if it's goes through the process, then it has some real value. Other than that, eating is a negative. Eating is a negative if you don't complete the process. So that's why I'm asking that question, because I don't know if we need to do anything else if we haven't done anything else. So that's why I asked the question. And if we need to do it as a chorus, we'll do it as a chorus, but just trying to ask it. So Brother Allen, we'll start with you. You got a mic in your hand. Talk to me about what transpired on this past night. What were your takeaways, and where do we really need to go with things?
Well, stood out was when we were talking about fear and some of the things that I was able to recognize in myself was at times I had given, power to other people with the fear that they put in me. And when they
hold on. They didn't put it in you.
Well, what they did as a reaction.
We have to make sure the terminology is proper. Nobody can put fear in you. Mm-hmm. Fear is a spirit that originates from within.
Yes.
It's never external.
Okay.
Never external.
Okay. I can understand what you're saying there, but when I have had fear, my thought patterns weren't good. I didn't do my job as well. And then when I knew what was producing the fear in me, it made my thought patterns not be as, thorough in what I did. And sometimes I would have somebody else's eyes look at what I was doing to see the mistakes I had made when I was having problems with that feeling.
So given all of that, where are you now?
I am more able to recognize and know that what was giving me the fear isn't something I should have been concerned.
You just went there and wrote it in.
Well, what happens in front of me, I shouldn't be afraid of, because it's not something that is affecting me in a way that it can hurt me as much as I thought it could.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
Okay. For me, the concept of it being like a cloud, and the Sunday correlation that you gave us helped me regarding my job and other areas, that now, even after service, if it started to come, I recognized it right away and dismissed it. I replaced it with something else because I was helping creating. I was doing that in my mind. The fear, which I called concern, it was still fear. And then once we had a clear definition, all through this week, if anything happened and I felt myself going where I was before I came to service on Sunday, then I identified it as fear and I replaced it with another thought. Whether it was putting the word on or redirecting my thinking, but I literally was able to recognize it and not coddle it. And I know it didn't go away, but I wasn't conscious of it. So that was my thought.
So what do you mean you know it didn't go away? What do you mean by that?
Because I might be limiting myself, but I'm feeling the same way Sunday I was on a cloud. So after service I was on point from my estimation. And other things that hit after service as the day went forth, I felt I was on point. But by Monday, I was at least having learned from Sunday, I was identifying it and stopping it Whereas before, it might have been my whole work day before I had my aha moment. I was catching it faster. So as I'm listening to myself, so I'm maintaining the conflict by assuming that I'm only hitting it for that moment and I'm expecting it to come back. So I'm doing like a self-fulfilling prophecy thing on myself.
Okay.
That was a question.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, what I got from Sunday about fear, and you can tell me it's right, misunderstood, but fear, you say it's a shadow, and when you get up on that shadow, I took it as it's not as big as you think it is. So I know that there were some fears in my life as I was growing up, and it was, I think it started like when I was in fourth grade. I was invited, well, I went to a wake for my fourth grade friend. His mother had passed. And then after I left that, there was also with somebody else that I was with, and they decided they wanted to go view other bodies. And so, being a fourth grader, that set up fear within me. And so,
Fear
of bodies. I didn't like going to wakes or funerals. And there was a lot of fear from fourth grade in it, and I think it lasted until I was like 23 or 24, where I actually had to go to a funeral. And so, like I say, it was really scary for me, but because of I faced my fear, and so it doesn't bother me anymore.
All right, so that one was gone when you were a few years ago, about 5 years ago when you were in your 20s. So what did you do with understanding shadows and objects?
So I think how I'm relating it to is because I faced it. I was up on it. I had a friend's father had passed, and so I went to the funeral.
But you say you dealt with that when we're talking about past then. You got past that.
Right.
How have you handled dealing with fear?
How have I been? What I do is I face it. Is it difficult? Yes, it is. And so I just step into it and embrace it, and I move forward. So that's how I deal with it.
Okay. All right. Then let me just say, because I know sometime again we get information. Now I'm just going to speak that we get information and then we crisscross. Literally two things. That there are two particular things in case it went past us. Two things. The shadow is always bigger than the object. We get intimidated by shadows. And when we get to the object, we realize the object is smaller than the shadow. And what we are afraid of is really the shadow, not the object, because in so many cases, we don't even know what the object is. But the closer you get to the object, then you realize what you were running from was the shadow. What could be, what it might be. Because there are some shadows you see, you don't know what it is, and thoughts start to come into your head to determine what is it. And so many times you face the object and you realize, I never should have been afraid in the first place. But it was the shadow. The thoughts enter. The shadow intimidates, thoughts enter, and then it takes on a life of its own. And then you start thinking the worst case scenario automatically. Yes, sir.
One thing that you just made even more clearer about the shadow and the object, that was one thing that I noticed that I looked past. In fact, this week I was worried about not a letter, but an email that came out there, and I already was thinking, okay, the word, because it was from my supervisor. And I already started looking at that shadow, and it's like, no, don't even go there, because you don't even know what it's all about. And then when I go into the email, it was all a matter of invite me to a meeting, but normally my supervisor doesn't contact me directly. So I was like, oh somebody said something and it didn't agree with them, so they talked to my supervisor. But like I said, all of a sudden I remember what you were talking about That's the shadow. The object is of what is in that email.
So think about that. If God has not given us the spirit of fear, God has not given us a secondary one, a spirit of fear. So you first of all got to start with the fact that fear is a spirit. And it says God has not given that to us. So if he's not given that to us, then you got to think the source has to be other than him. So we have to begin to decide when that starts to kick in, unless it's an obvious, known, life-threatening situations that's verifiable, that you know puts you in threat, in danger, like the hurricane that's rolling down the road through Florida, how long it goes. Well, that's an obvious danger. That's not uncertain, that's real. Well, that's totally different from where we are right now. I wonder, is it coming to St. Louis? Well, it's not coming here in St. Louis.
Right.
But you can start thinking, oh, well, we must be next. Well, then now that's fear because it's nowhere near. It's on the coast and so it ain't going in other places, although it's real there, but it isn't real here. It isn't real here. And so there are a few people that I know that are in their way, and I sent a note to ask, are you in a safe place? Now, one, they just moved there about a year ago, and they said, we're in a safe place. They don't know anything about where they are. They just moved to Florida a year ago. On the other hand, the second person has been there 30 years, so he's gone through multiple. And he said, the reason why I'm leaving and we're in the past is because I know the last time, if the windows go out, then the house floods, so you have to be ready to quickly put something on or you lose everything. Well, that's come from the person's experience, and obviously he has things set up so he can go to a place and then come back out as necessary. The people who just went there and built a house, they don't know what they're talking about, although they said they're in a safe place. No, they're not. No, they're not. They don't even know what they're doing. It's somebody you know. They're not in a safe place because they don't know. So we make those decisions. So tonight in Mark chapter 4 about listening to God. Last week we learned some things about listening, how God's word it puts us in a certain place. But in Mark 4, listen, you're wondering, how do I hear him? But he tells us how. And then he tells us how we don't. And then there are some times in which we really are not the good ground because we have other stuff going on. Now, listen in verse 1. So Jesus began to teach by the sea, and a multitude came to him, and he got in a boat, went out on the sea, and the multitude was there. And then he taught them many things by parables. But this specific one is about grasping the word. Behold, a sower went out to sow. And it happened as he sowed, some seed fell by the wayside. And the birds of the air came and devoured it. So let me ask, was there something wrong with the seed? Or was there something wrong with the sower? Or was there nothing wrong with either one? All right, okay. That's not a trick question. And notice what it said. A sower went out to sow, which meant he sowed. Right. And as he sowed, some seed. So there was seed. Right. So there's nothing wrong with the sower and nothing wrong with the seed. Right. So we got that clearly established, right? Right. Nothing wrong with the sower, nothing wrong with the seed. Right. So it's got to be the next thing. So notice what he said. It fell by the wayside, and the birds came and devoured it. That's one. The second thing, it fell on stony ground. Seed. But it was shallow, and it didn't get beneath the surface. But it sprang up. So that means, it doesn't have to have a great amount of dirt, but if it doesn't have enough soil, it might sprout, but then it'll die quickly. Now, for somebody who's ever done with gardens, then they know that if you don't give it the adequate stuff, then it's short-lived. It might have some response, but you'll look up and then it's really gone. And when the sun was up, it was scorched because it had no root, and then it withered away. And then some fell on thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it. And it yielded nothing. And then the same seed, remember the seed came from the same place, it fell on good ground and yielded a crop that sprang up, increased, and produced. Notice the term. It sprang up, it increased, and it produced 30, 60, and some 100-fold. And then he says, the one who has ears to hear, let them hear. So what do you say about that when you hear that? When you hear that, what's the first thought that comes to mind?
Faith. Faith and belief.
All right, okay. All right, what comes to mind? These are four different, if you really take it, these are four different types of individuals. Four different types of individuals. Using the soul, which is really talking about the heart of mankind. You using the soul. Anybody else?
The ones that take the word, memorize it, but don't apply it. Some that try to apply certain scriptures, certain word, being the seed, and it being emotional, not really applying it and keeping it inside themselves. And then another one just heard it but didn't hear it and forgot it.
Okay, take a look at the first one in verse 4. Some fell by the wayside. The birds came up and they devoured it. That's a picture of a closed mind. I mean, it was there. Remember, as I said, nothing was wrong with the sower, nothing was wrong with the seed. So, but it was like it was rejected, and it never went anywhere. So, if you picture the heart or the thought process, you've got same people. Let's just say in a setting, in a teaching setting, in a church, they're hearing the same thing. They're hearing the exact same thing, and you wonder how do people end up going another way. So just let them know this is a closed mind. So you could intentionally pay attention, but your mind isn't receptive to what is being said. Your mind isn't receptive. Now, have you ever found yourself in a setting and you knew you weren't really paying attention, but you looked like you were? But if somebody were to ask you, what were they talking about? You know you couldn't tell them. But you were there. And so there are sometimes that the word goes forth and the people are in the midst of it all and their minds are closed and it goes nowhere. And that's why sometimes you can say, well, didn't you hear such and such that was said? But their minds were closed and they could not hear. So that meant then they had a disobedient heart and their mind was closed. Now take a look at verse 5. Verse 5 and 6. Some fell on stony ground. It immediately sprang up. So this is a confused mind. This is the confusion of it. Notice what it said. It immediately sprang up, but it had no depth. It was scorched, and it had no root. So it was disturbed. It had so much confusion. You know, something you, and this is one of the challenges. When you're hearing something, you know something ahead of time, and you hold on and defend what you said you knew, and you were not open to what might have disrupted or changed that. So you find yourself in this battle, you're pushing back on what you're hearing because you've already determined, no, I'm not hearing that, this is how I see it, and this is how I know that it is. So really at that point you're resisting what it is that God could be saying because you had already determined, I already know. I already know.
Close mind.
That's it's confused. That one is confused. That one, the closed said, I'm just not going to listen to it at all. The confused said, oh, I hear it, but I'm battling, and I'm not trying to change what I've known. It's so many times to hear people say, well, you know, I've been doing it like this for so long. You know, I'm not going to change like that overnight. You know, that old excuse. I've been like this a long time. But what they're really saying is, I'm not really trying to hear that. I'm not really trying to hear that, because after when that mind is made up, how far can anybody get trying to talk to you?
Like hitting a brick wall.
And you know, have you ever experienced that? You said, "Well, I'm not trying to hear that. Talk to the hand. I'm not trying to hear anything that you got to say." So you notice what's being said. So then here's another one. Take a look at verse 7. Some fell, it grew, but it got choking and yielded no crop. Distracted. Yes, sir.
Oh,
Okay.
can you explain the closed mind and confused mind? Because I still feel like they sound similar, but you're saying it's two different things.
Closed mind, I don't want to hear at all.
Okay.
I just totally reject it.
Okay.
I'm not really paying attention. It's like, I'm just here, doing my duty, can say I went, showed up, nobody can say I didn't show up. Closed mind, I left the same way I came. The confused mind is the one who's already taken a position about something. Here's what I know. Somebody can say something about worship, and it's like, I know worship. Worship means A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then suddenly somebody say, well, you know what? There's a deeper level or something else that could be done. And then you push it back because they, oh, no, that's not worship. The way it was because the confusion pushed it back because of not being open to what could have taken something to a level different. And here's the thing. We accept it in every other area of our life except when it comes to the church. We accept change. You know, when these phones change, when these smartphone changes, it doesn't matter how much we like the other one. If there's a better one, we move our way to it. And they know it because they say, upgrade, get this one, pick the other one, and we know new perks, and then we're receptive to it. Or smart, what about smart TVs? There are not a whole lot of the rest of TVs now that are even set up to gain certain things unless you get a smart TV. They got it set up, and so you just say, well, I love this TV. You know, I've had this is a family heirloom, this is one I'm gonna use. But we make those shifts.
Same with the phone.
That's what we talk about, the phone. We make those shifts. So it's easy to do. Or what about a car when they put something different in a car, and then we don't have a problem in terms of the difference in what the car is. It's like, if this will make it better, they tell you about tires. These are better tires. Okay, all right, let me try these. You go in and so we don't have any, but it comes to that, something new being presented in the church, or I haven't heard it like that. Or one of the main things, I don't see it like that. Oh, we're good at that one. Oh, that's your view. We're good at that. Instead of saying, is God saying something is he saying something to me? And if it honors him, then who should be making the adjustment? Should it be me, or should I be fighting against? And will I be better off? And I'll never know as long as I'm pushing back. If it isn't heretical, if it isn't pushing back against God, then you got to ask yourself, why am I not open?
Yes, sir.
You got to ask, why am I not open? I mean, you have to ask yourself, why am I not open? And it's because I want to hold on to what I've held on to. Then number 7, verse 7. We just said, now notice what they said. Some seed fell on the thorns, and the thorn grew up and choked it, and it yielded no crop. Distractions. That's the distracted heart or the cluttered mind. Because you got so much stuff going on. You know how hard it is to concentrate? When you're, and you know, the super multitaskers who like to have 1,000 things going on at the same time, and then you're asked to concentrate. I need you to focus in on this. Hey, really tune other stuff out and really focus in, because you could come into a service, into a study, and physically be there, and a thought takes you down another road, and you couldn't remain attentive. You started thinking about the cares of this world. You start thinking about something else. And then you come back and there's a disconnect. That's what it looks like with that cluttered mind. We have so much stuff going on. So I use this term, and to say, be here now. Be here now. Be here now. Because that's the only way. In other words, be here now or stay in the moment. Be here now, stay in the moment. Well, let's make it a full-blown quote. The only way to maximize is to be here now and stay in the moment. Or you'll find yourself gone down another path and you don't get the full experience of right now. You don't get the full experience. Have you found yourself sometimes saying, I missed that? Or I didn't hear that. Oh, they said that? And you say, I missed that. Because what had happened is you had drifted. The clutter had kicked in. It had all kicked in. So then look at verse 8. And then so think about it. It becomes unfruitful because it's not sustainable. And it's like it's been strangled or choked, like you've been strangled. Now, have you ever been strangled? And you know what that's like? You strangle and you're trying to catch yourself. One of the funniest things is people are strangling and they start drinking stuff. It's always pretty bizarre. Listen, you think you need something to drink and they're trying to give them something to drink. Well, they're already strangling. Have you noticed that's one of our first responses? Give them something to drink and they're trying to and he's like, what do you think that's going to do? They're already in trouble. And you said, take this too. Okay. Then verse 8. But then the other seed. Now remember, the seed was right, the sower was right. Nothing wrong with the sower, nothing wrong with the seed. And then it said the other seed, or should we say the rest of the seed, fell on good ground. And all these benefits yielded a crop that sprang up, increased, and produced. Sprang up, increased, and produced. That's why you can clearly know when somebody really gets it, then they move over to 2 Timothy 2, the first two verses. That which you have learned, you teach it to somebody else so they can teach it to somebody else. Notice what this verse said. Increase, produce, sprang up, so it never stays. In other words, it never stays as it was. That soil did not stay as it was. It started reaping something up that was different. And so when a person is taking the word in, they are not the same because they start growing. They start spreading out. The influence increases because their whole personhood is changed. Their influence increases as a result. So in other words, you took up small space. You had small level influence or impact. But as you grow and mature, then what starts to happen is boldness comes in as a result. Simply because more and more comfortable in the relationship with the Lord, you want more and more people to know. The more you grow in your walk with the Lord, the more you want other people to know. It's pretty clear. The reason why we're not as excited and saying to somebody else about our personal relationship with the Lord is because we're not growing at the level that we should, because we would want somebody else to know. We would not privatize it. It would not be members only. So let me stop right there. That's enough to roll us for a while. It will not be members only. You notice that we pass our membership cards and say, I'm only gonna talk to another saint. You know, and yeah, you know, and I don't talk to them. Somebody talk to you. And literally, the whole purpose that God still has us here, the saints. All right, let's play this out. The saints are to encourage and strengthen and support you while you're connecting with those who are not saints. Because if you were around saints all the time, you would need all of that. Because when somebody who doesn't know him blindsides you, that's where the body comes in. We provoke one another into good words. We encourage each other. We come back and say, I had a tough time today. And then we're able to say something. And now, because I'm on that same journey, I can walk with you and be supportive of you. But then, but you said, but for what reason? It's like Brother Albert talked about this email from the boss. Just think about it. What was the worst thing that could have happened? That they just told you were fired. That's the worst possible thing. So what? That's the worst possible thing. If you're concerned, get to the worst thing quickly and get it over with. What's the worst thing? I can get fired. Okay, so let me deal with being fired. Now that I work myself through that, now what? Now what am I afraid of? I might as well go and answer this phone. I might as well go and look at this email. Just go take it all the way to your limit. Now backpedal. Now backpedal. What is it? Police behind you, flashing light. Oh. All right, what have I done? Okay, I wonder if they're gonna pull me over. Okay, get settled down inside of you. If they do pull you over, so what? Are you running from something? You committed a crime? If you know you haven't, so what? Let them stop you. What's the worst thing that could happen? You could be stopped. You could be questioned. They could ask about your insurance. They could ask you for a license. They can start asking you those things. So what? Because the worst thing is wondering what's going to happen. Face it and then backpedal. Face it and then backpedal. But back again. Members Club. Let's talk about Members Club. About members only. Have you found yourself engaging more people who don't know the Lord, or shrinking the people you talk to, and it's almost exclusively, unless you have to talk to somebody you don't? Are you looking forward to meeting people who could be foul? Yes, sir.
I'd say I was in that group of being around more saints than I was people that were lost. And then I see that balance slowly swaying to the other side of speaking to people that are lost and bringing the knowledge, like you were talking about, Pastor, to them about the gospel. I'm seeing that more. And I'm feeling more, more people that are coming to myself for that reason that I don't even know. And I'm just seeing it more. And then I'm just more, experienced on how to explain the gospel. So I'm looking forward to spreading the gospel more than I used to.
All right, I'm glad you said that part. Now I'm going to walk you back another way. I'm glad you said that part about explaining the gospel. We can champion explaining it and fail living it.
Okay.
And fail living it. What we should be championing is living the gospel. First Timothy 3:15 says, be ready to say something. That's after they've experienced you. Now the words are justified. We got it down telling people what they need and why they need Jesus.
Yeah.
But do they experience us living Jesus? And then want to know why we live the way we live. Now, this is not throwing anything at you, just to say, because we end up talking about, let's go spread the gospel, and we de-emphasize living the gospel, but we become experts in spreading the gospel. Why don't you go over here, let me tell you why you need Jesus, and to say, but is that what they're experiencing with you? I mean, I made this post today. Now I have to remember. I don't remember it was something about taste. When people taste you or experience you, what is it like? Is it like what you said, or is it like I don't want any of this? Would they send it back to the kitchen
Right.
and say, and then do something else? It was like yesterday, because if you've been around me, I just love dealing with managers and stewards. I was dealing with this manager. Went yesterday with a friend. We sat down, and I asked the waiter. I said, "Do managers here tear up tickets?" Was my question to him. So he looked at me and didn't know what to do. I said, I'm just asking, do they ever tear up tickets? So he goes and gets a manager. So the manager comes over, and I said, I was asking him, are there times that you all tear up tickets? And she said, when there's something wrong, we do. I said, everything about this meal is wrong, but we ate it all. The problem is we ate it. So she just walked away with a smile, but it got the answer that we wanted. When they do tear up tickets, the waiter needed to know that. They do tear them up when there's less than acceptable service. They'll destroy them and ask you to have a great day and still try to give you something that you want. But it really was testing the waiter. They're completely clueless about that. Because we get them all the time. We get them all of the time. So in other words, what's the experience? What are people experiencing about you to a place that they want to know something else? Any other thing? And these are just some examples. Today, Gwen, while we were with Graylin, we went to, now you don't have to know anything about golf with this, but let me kind of explain what happened. There had been a time in which, let's say there's 18 holes. One time we had played half of those, so we had a rain check for the other half to come back. So that's logical, right? It was already paid for, but we only played for half, and they give you a rain check to say come and finish up the next time. So we go to the place with these tickets saying rain check, the ability to play to finish the rest of the round. The person behind the counter was trying to say, you're going to have to pay for a full round and we'll give you another rain check. So we're sitting here wondering, well, wait. You gave us this that was going to cover that, and the person was struggling with understanding it's already paid for. Well, he said, we have developing prices, so you'd have to play the exact same time you did the last time for this price to apply. You see how confusing this is becoming? And so my friend is a bit perplexed, and I'm just looking at him. It's like, you issued this. You said that it could come and it could do this. So he, in turn, had the receipt from when it was the first time. And the same man who is a functioning widget maker, who can't make executive decisions, had to get outside of himself, and the decision needed to be made for him. Now, there was an opportunity, and it was good it wasn't some other people who had that experience, or he would have been renamed by some people that I know who would have encountered that, who play golf because of, when they said they had that, they were convinced, and they would have been giving him the business, and it would not have been a pleasant morning for him. Well, it didn't even end right there. So then we go over to another part, and we ask the gentleman, is there some consideration that we can move in this space where nobody is? So he has his iPad going down the line. Well, we're booked here, and this is how this goes. And I said, sir, all I'm doing is asking you a question. Is it possible to potentially be between this space? Well, they're already lined up, and they're coming here, and I'm looking where there's nobody over here, and there's nobody over there. And then he said, you're late for your time over there. It's like, well, no, your person in the office is. That was another opportunity. But he's a widget maker and can't make an executive decision. So I was explaining to the friend, you have to understand who you're talking to. You don't get upset. You live the gospel so that in spite of what they're doing, you don't get caught up, because that was an opportunity to put them in their place on 2 different occasions. But the question was, do you live the gospel, show grace, show kindness, so that if they see you again, what they're going to remember is how off they were and how calm you were. So that if I ever see them again, then it'll be an opportunity. Do you remember the last time and how you were outside of yourself, you didn't recognize about being flexible and how important that is? I just want to tell you, I'm so glad that I met you, because it showed me how far I've come. Live it, then speak. Live the gospel, then speak. But it's back again to this word. When the word goes down inside, when you keep making sure that you don't get distracted, when you're making sure that you aren't just showing up just to show up, when you're making sure that your mind isn't cluttered, or that you're defending something you know so that you don't take in something else, that makes you a recipient to be able to receive the word. But it's only after you screen yourself. Make sure you're here. Don't fight to defend what you know. Stay locked in. Now you're in a position to receive. Somebody could have had a quart of water waiting for you, and you were only focused enough to get a teaspoon. And the word was just coming. The word was just coming, and you left with a teaspoon, instead of being quenched with the 32 ounces of the word. So let me listen to you all. Otherwise, I'll never know whether or not you heard it. So let me ask, we'll go a step further. Is there something wrong with the sower?
No.
Has the word, the seed, been communicated clearly?
Yes.
So then, therefore, what ground are you? Now, let's see you get out of that one. You walk right into that one, right? Now, what ground? What ground are you, and why? We're going to give you a chance to build. Okay, what ground are you, and why? What have you gotten now? So that those who are out there that hear, or even somebody who's out there who wants to be able to say, what have you gotten now to help you to understand how to get the maximum out of hearing the word being communicated? Again, when there's nothing wrong with the sower, when there's nothing wrong with the seed, then now that becomes the process. So when there's nothing wrong with the sower and there's nothing wrong with the seed, then now it boils down to are things right about you?
So, Pastor, with the example you used about the widgets, we have to be careful not to be digging into them and really make a mockery out of them, because we know we're right.
Okay. You mean?
Because sometimes I can be a digger. I can. Somebody just nod their head.
Okay.
So you got to be in the right spirit even in that. You know, you think you're coming off being helpful for them, but you really are showing them up. But you know what the outcome is going to be.
You turn around because you know you proved it. See
I've done it.
I knew it. They proved it
In the past. I've done it.
Yeah.
I don't do it anymore, but I've done it. I got the skills to do it too.
Okay. All right. And the way that you know is that you always ask, how am I being experienced? You ask the question and give people the chance to say, how am I being experienced? And although in your mind you may think it's a certain way, the only question is, do you adjust when something different is said? Now, I come across hard, and I know I do. But it's so many times people are afraid to say something. So since they don't say anything, I come across hard. And I know I do.
What are they afraid of?
I can't answer that question. I'm only saying to you that if nobody says, then you keep going where you're going. It's just like it's somebody now want to talk to me. But I'm not talking to them. All right, back again. We're talking about the soil. What kind of soil?
I have a question. Want to make sure I understood. You said when you're here, you want to make sure you're present and that you're hearing and that your mind is clear. So my thing is, the purpose is to come here to clear your mind.
No,
Okay,
no,
explain.
not at all. If you came in with a cluttered mind, you're already missing. That, which means that if it's cluttered already, you can't receive what's being said because it's all over the place. So that won't clear it. That won't clear it. The setting can't clear it for you. You have to make a decision. We have to make the decision. See, that's part of what happens oftentimes. I'm going to come to church and I'm going to feel better. Well, if your intention was right and you made a decision to say, I need to leave this alone in order to step into here. All the stuff I was dealing with before I came has to be put on hold in order for me to be eligible to receive. Because it doesn't happen like osmosis. It doesn't just happen and all of a sudden it just takes away all the thoughts you had when you came in. It just doesn't. It doesn't. He gives us an out. He gives us an opportunity. But it doesn't go away. Now, and here's the other thing, just highlighting this for you. So many times people say, well, if it's a high praise service, if it's a high spirit service, you walk right into it, and I just felt it drop off of me. I hear people say stuff like that. I just felt it drop off. As soon as I got in there, they were rocking, and I just, whoo, it just all changed. Like, yeah, okay, it did not. That's exactly what it was. The vibrations got to you.
Yes, sir.
And when the vibrations get to you, your body just goes to work on its own. It just goes to work on its own. Said in fact, brother Ed, do me a favor. Why don't you come up here and play something? Well, you knew it was gonna happen, right? You're So I really, it's a sound. It's a sound. I know you'll figure out how to get it on. And see, it's a sound. It's just a sound. And see, when a sound comes out, then we respond. That's why one of the worst times for somebody to go into, but it should be plugged in. All that should be.
I don't see the power light coming on.
That everything should be plugged in right here. No, it's not. Nah, it is.
Oh, there we go.
Do you have it on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now all you see now, you notice these sounds? Now while he's making these sounds, start to notice what your body is doing. Just as he's playing. And just kind of watch how differently your body starts to respond.
Relax.
Just because he's playing.
I'm chilling.
You can feel it back there, can't you, Brother James? Now go on, he was about to sing. He might well go on. I mean, he put it up like he was about to roll, right? When the music starts, doesn't matter where you are, your body starts to move, 'cause it doesn't know any other way. But when you love the Lord, you bring it under subjection. Then you line it up with your thoughts and your heart, because worship comes from within first, then it is expressed out. It doesn't start on the outside because it's so undisciplined and it doesn't know where it's going. It needs direction because God's seeking worshipers who will worship Him in spirit and in truth. That just sounds so different, doesn't it? When you start thinking about Jesus, everything around you starts to change. When you start thinking about Jesus, you realize there's nothing to be ashamed. When you think about Jesus, all your cares just go away. 'Cause He's waiting to receive all of your concerns and to toss them aside. Trust Jesus. Trust Jesus. Trust Jesus with all your cares, all your fears, all your pain, all your uncertainty. Trust Jesus. Trust Jesus. He'll never let you down. He's made you more than a conqueror, an heir and a joint heir, a royal priesthood, a light to sit on a hill. Let your light shine so that others may see your good work and they glorify the Father who is in heaven. Let your good works, let them be shown to everyone. 'Cause if you lift Him up, He'll draw all men unto Him. Lift Jesus up. Lift Jesus up. So why don't you get a mic to Gwen and Asia, so they're gonna pick up this chorus right here. Lift Jesus up. Lift Jesus up. Lift Jesus up.
Jesus
Lift Jesus up. Lift up Jesus.
Lift up Jesus.
Lift up Jesus. Lift Him up. Lift up Jesus.
Lift up Jesus.
Lift up Jesus.
Lift up Jesus.
Lift Him up. Lift Jesus up. Lift up Jesus.
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 Lift Jesus up.
Lift Jesus up.
Lift up Jesus.
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 Lift Jesus.
Jesus.
Lift him up.
Lift him up.
Lift up Jesus.
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 Lift up Jesus. Lift up Jesus.
Lift up Jesus.
Lift up Jesus.
Lift up Jesus.
Lift up Jesus.
Lift up Jesus.
Oh, lift him up.
Lift him up.
Now you notice how immediately the environment changed, but we had to redirect and go in a way that says, make it Jesus-centric. And then as a result, the whole dynamics changed. The whole dynamics changed. Then it was just no longer just music. Music is neutral. Music is always neutral, and the body responds to all the vibration. So then, but it has to be redeemed to go back to him, so that the spirit of those who love him now become in tune, because the sound of his name start to move things up. Now that's the reason why some songs, Brother Ed, under the guise of Christianity, don't ever mention his name.
Yes, sir.
They start saying he, him.
Yes, sir.
Now I love Jonathan McReynolds, but he has one out, whether this is his word, is your word, this is your word, something like that. And it doesn't use his name. It doesn't use his name. Although we know theoretically what he's talking about, but his name isn't mentioned. But it changes it when you clearly know he's in the midst of it all. So you have to make him in the midst of it all, because your spirit, the spirit down inside of you, begins to connect, and then it changes how you go about listening and engaging. Music is neutral, but it can be redeemed. Just like, what a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and grief to bear. What a privilege to carry everything. What a friend we have in Jesus.
What a friend we have in Jesus.
All our sins and grief to bear.
All our sins and griefs to bear.
What a privilege to carry.
What a privilege to carry
Everything to God in prayer.
everything to God in prayer.
Oh, what peace we often forfeit.
Oh, what peace we often
Oh, what
forfeit.
needless pain we bear.
Oh, what needless pain we bear.
All because we do not carry
Oh, because we do not carry
everything.
Everything to God in prayer.
Father, we just thank you that you've given us the privilege to come before your throne, that you said that we can come boldly before your throne where we can find help in the time of need, that you're not a priest who cannot empathize with all the challenges that we have and the circumstances that we face. But we thank you that the blood that your son shed for us allowed us to be called your sons and your daughters, to give us access that when we call on your name, you will hear. And you respond to us in a way that fits our circumstance as they are, as we are being developed spiritually in a way that we become more like you, shaped and conformed in the image of your Son. So all who are here tonight, we ask that you would watch over them as they go, those who are tuned in, and that they don't lose sight of the friendship that we have, that we can come to you. What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to you in prayer. And we just thank you in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.